Maybe you feel like you've been struggling for so long and you are tired of feeling like that and you want to bring harmony in your life. Maybe you also feel like you struggle in an area of your life and things start to look a little bit better and all of a sudden everything falls apart again. Or one area of your life gets better, but then the other one gets worse and you don't seem to find the balance in your life. And everything just feels like sluggish and slow and like a struggle, and you're kind of tired of that. My friend, I get you completely because I was in that position. And if you're in that position, I completely get you. And I'm here to give you some practical steps that have helped me in my journey. Since I started my healing journey and my spiritual journey and my artistic journey, it has helped me tremendously because my life now is completely different as it was 10 years ago. So my name is Caro Mendieta. I am a professional artist. I'm also a quantum healing practitioner. So I offer hypnosis sessions and I help people remove all these subconscious blocks and all these imprints that they have in their subconscious that they're not aware of. So I want to just give you a little bit of story of where I come from. I'm from Nicaragua and I used to drink a lot. I was a heavy alcoholic back in the day when I was in college, and I used to drink, at one point I used to drink every day. And I was drinking not just like beer, I was drinking very hard liquor. I would drink so much, I don't even know how or where it all went. I'm petite, I'm 5 feet tall, and I would drink like a tall ass, grown ass man. Seriously, sometimes I would even pair up with Americans and I would drink more. But that was because I was used to, and my body got used to the drinking. I grew up in a family of drinkers and alcoholics basically. So that was ingrained in me, in my DNA. I grew up in that environment. I was used to it. So for me, drinking was normal. I started drinking, my first drink was at 12 years old, and then I started drinking when I was 14. So when I left college, I went to Miami. From Nicaragua, I went to Miami and I was still drinking. I was partying in South Beach in Miami, having the life of my dreams back then. For me, partying was amazing. I would go to clubs, it was so fun, but I went by myself. My family stayed in Nicaragua and I migrated by myself and I stayed at my dad's uncle's house. And I wanted to get out of there because the environment was very unhealthy. My uncles and my aunt they were obese, they were eating very bad, and I gained a lot of weight. And I didn't want my life to end up like that. I was having a lot of culture shock as well, so I needed an action plan for me to get out of that house and start a new life, basically. So I understood that I needed to stop drinking. So I stopped drinking and all of a sudden all the emotions started to surface. And I started to observe things that I wasn't aware of anymore because the drinking kind of like blurred my vision. So why am I telling you this? Maybe you don't drink, maybe you do drink, but why I'm telling you this is because when we are in a constant struggle, we have to observe what are those things that we've done for so long, that we're so used to, that we might not even know that that might be the cause of our issue. So for one, I didn't know that alcohol was my main issue till I saw that it wasn't sustainable anymore, that I needed to become sober or at least have the clarity of mind so that I can be clear in my mind and take the action steps that I needed to take to leave my uncle's house. So I still kept drinking, but I reduced it. But then I got confronted with my own shadows and I had to deal with all these emotions that were surfacing. So that's when all the chaos started happening. It was chaos after chaos after chaos. And I was just so tired of it. That's when my spiritual journey began and I hired a spiritual coach. And here's where I'm going to give you a series of steps or a series of things. They are not supposed to be taken in order. It all depends on where you're at in your journey. But for me, my first step was to realize where the toxic foundations come from. You know, when you have so much struggle or so much chaos in your life, you have to see the patterns. You have to see where it's coming from, you know? And for example, one of my main issues when I was drinking was that I would fight all the time. I would fight with my friends. I would create chaos around drinking. or I would drunk text people, or I would get emotional and cry. So I realized, okay, it might be coming from the alcohol. I need to stop that. But in reality, it never really comes from a substance. The substance is just the medicine or the thing that we need at that moment to kind of like numb us out or kind of like suppress the emotions. But the real source is much, much deeper. So I have a background in psychology, and I studied substance and substance abuse. And we learned that there's two things that addicts have. They could either be dependent or they could be just an addict. And basically, dependency is biological and addiction is psychological. So you have to kind of monitor that. I was both, but because I was consuming less alcohol because I was drinking with I was living with my uncles, my body started to kind of like detox on its own, and I wasn't at that point where I was fully dependent. There's people that cannot live without alcohol for many days or weeks because they'll die. Basically, their body will come into shock. So you have to kind of like analyze that. You have to analyze where you're at, and if you have a drug or alcohol abuse, then you might want to reassess and see like I need to go to AA or I need professional help. In my case, I felt like I didn't need professional help. I might have needed it, but I didn't take that step. I started to kind of like have more clarity, but then I started to see all these emotions and all these patterns that were kind of hidden and just pushed down the rug, and I had the alcohol kind of help me forget it. But in reality, the problem is not the substance. The problem is the deep issue that we're trying to fill. It's like we're trying to fill a void and we try to fill it with alcohol. So the problem is not the substance per se, it's the void that we try to fill with the substance. So the void and that pain that we carry is what we're trying to look at and see deep. So that was one thing. You have to identify what are your toxic patterns. Maybe that is something with a substance abuse. Maybe that is with a partner. Maybe that is with the people that you surround yourself with. So you have to identify where are the toxic things in your environment and start to change them. Which gets me to point 2. Change your environment. So that is completely fundamental. And that was basically the first thing that my spiritual coach told me about more than 10 years ago. She told me this: clear clutter. And that may sound kind of like dumb or nothing like, big or whatever, but that actually really changed a lot. It changed my perception, it changed my mood, it changed the way that I felt. Because your environment reflects your mind, and your mind reflects your environment. So we want to change the environment. That could be changing the way that your room looks, maybe redecorating your room, maybe reorganizing your room. Clearing clutter is basically removing the things that you no longer need. Things that remind you of your ex, things that remind you of bad things, or you have to look at every object and see, okay, where did I get this object? Do I love this object? Does this object remind me of someone? And if you have any negative connotation around that object, let it go. Because objects carry energy, and usually they carry the energy of the previous owner, or they carry the energy of where you got it from. So if, for example, if you got a furniture and you were fighting with your partner the day that you got it, then that object is going to carry that energy, unless you clear it and you sage it, and there's a protocol for it. But most of the time your mind already has an association of that object, so you have to remove those objects that you either don't love at all, that kind of give you like you don't like. For example, some clothes that itches you, just get rid of it. Get rid of things that your ex gave you, things that remind you of negative things. You have to get rid of all those things. And if you have a hard time getting rid of things, then that's information for you to note that you're attached and you have an attachment and an attachment challenge. So those are things to work on. And kind of you have to ask yourself, well, am I attached to this object? Why am I having such a hard time letting go of this object? And the answer is going to give you a lot of information of where you're at and what you need to look within yourself and what you need to work on. So clearing clutter and removing things is going to clear the space, and it's going to create more space for you to attract more things in your life, whether that's material things or whether that's more opportunities. But just the act of clearing clutter is signaling to your brain and your subconscious that you're ready for change. You're ready for something new. You're ready to attract more harmony and more good things in your life. So you have to create the space around you that feels harmonious. And for me, my house, or wherever I am, my workspace, my house, wherever I live, even if I'm traveling or if I'm just staying at someone's place for a weekend, I bring a candle with me or incense, because I like to have my space that reflects harmony, that reflects peace, that reflects the state that I want to be in, because that will influence your mind subconsciously and will allow you to regulate your nervous system and allow you to feel that you're in a safe space, that you're in a safe place, and that you're allowed to relax and you're allowed to have harmony. So it's really rewires or restructures your brain and the way that you feel around you. So that's where, shameless plug here, I have my art right here, for example, that all these pieces carry information. They carry the frequency of when I painted it, the state that I was. Normally when I paint, I'm in a calm state. So that is infused in the painting. And the painting or the art has story. It has the energy of the artist. It has the message. If you are spiritual, it has the message that the artist channeled and infused in the painting. So having those images around you, those are objects of power. And a lot of shamans and a lot of Native American tribes, they use objects as power because they know the influence that objects of power give to the subconscious mind and to your body and to your state. So having objects of power, basically, and not like power over people, it's like power over yourself. It just empowers you. Having objects that empower you infuse you with energy and infuse you with the mental state that you want. Okay, so you have to have things that reflect your harmony. You have to kind of look at different art pieces, and I would suggest buying from an artist because it's human made and it has the energy. It's totally different than buying from Walmart because it really doesn't have any soul. So art that reflects who you are or reflects the road that you want to take or the life that you want is crucial. So if you don't have art, or if you don't have a budget to buy art, you can just create your own piece of art and infuse it with the life that you want to bring. Maybe you want to create a vision board or a dream board and collage all the images that you want and of the life that you dream of, because that visual reminder is constantly being replayed by your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is always awake. You know, maybe your conscious mind is focused on another thing, but your subconscious mind is absorbing all the information around you. So if you have all these images placed in strategic areas where you can see all the time, you are rewiring your brain to have that image within so that it reminds it of what goals you have, what dreams you have, and what state you want to be at all the time. And this is where it also comes feng shui. So I never know if it's feng shui or feng shui. Anyways, I gave a book of feng shui to my mom. My mom was the most disorganized person I had ever met. And whenever I would go to her house, there was complete chaos. And the chaos reflected the chaos in her mind. But I wanted to help her. And I had read about Feng Shui and how organizing your space and your environment can really create the energy of harmony in your life. And knowing where to place the objects in your space can allow for healing as well. So I gave her a book, and this book completely changed her life. She started to become more organized. She's not fully organized now, but she, compared to how she was before, she is way more organized, and she knows where to place different things. And I learned a lot about that book, about how energy moves in your space and how it influences your mind and your state of being. So change your environment, okay? So we were talking about changing the environment around you. So that could be redecorating, remodeling your space, whether that's your room or your office or your business, or changing your environment with place that you live. So if you're constantly meeting people, or you have friends that are toxic or that influence in negative ways, which goes back to point one, is observing what are the toxic traits or the toxic things that you need to change, then you might have to change your friends. And I know it sucks sometimes, but if they are negatively influencing your life, then it's not going to help you find harmony in your life, and you're always going to feel like it's a constant struggle. So changing the environment means changing your partner, or changing your friends, or changing the place where you live. Maybe you have to move cities or move states or go to a different country if that is going to bring you more harmony and more joy in your life. Always think about you as a priority, because the more you are harmonized, the more you vibrate or emanate that harmony, the more you'll attract those people. So it always starts with you, okay? If you do have toxic friends or toxic people around you, it's unfortunately a reflection of where our state of mind is. It doesn't mean that you're toxic, it just means that you allow those people in your space, which means that you might not have good self-worth or self-image. And those are things to note. So those are things to journal and observe and be like, why do I let this person treat me like this? Or why do I let this person be like this? And when you know that, you might not have full self-worth. Maybe you don't value yourself. Maybe you are afraid that you won't find the right people. Which brings me to step number 3 is, what is observing? What is your relationship with your parents? And I'll give you a little bit of an anecdote here. Is I had a roommate who was my friend. We're not friends anymore, but we lived together, and that was a big mistake. And I started seeing some negative, toxic traits around her. And I was constantly blaming her. I was like, she's doing this, she's doing this, she's doing that. And then I noticed there must be something about me. If she's in my life, there must be a reason. People come here to trigger us or to teach us lessons. They're here to shake us. So it's not that it's their fault, because if we point fingers all the time, that means that we're in a victim state. But if we start to look at it as, this person is teaching me something about me, then I can find the lesson and I can work through it within myself, and then I can change it, and then this person's gonna leave. So I stopped blaming her, and I was like, okay, this is something mine. I need to figure out why this is happening. And I found out something really crucial. And she reminded me of one of my parents, that basically my mom. It reminded me, if my mom's watching, if you're watching, Mom, I love you. We worked through this, so it's okay. Back in the day, not anymore, but she wouldn't respect my boundaries. And this friend that I had, was acting the same way that my mom was acting when I was a little girl, okay? I didn't realize that until I just sat down and reflected. And I was like, why is this person in my life? And then I realized that she was in my life because she was showing me about a wound that I had with my mother. Obviously, she was a female, and the first female that we see is our mother. The first male that we see when we are born is our father. So those are hints, okay? She was reflecting a wound that I had with my mother. And one of the wounds was that I was really hurt that she wouldn't respect my boundaries, and other things that I uncovered with this relationship that I had with this friend. When I healed that, and I found out that I had a deep abandonment wound and all these things, I was able to heal that, and this person vanished from my life completely. I've never seen her after that. And then it was very beautiful, because even though we had some conflict at that time, I could release this person with honor and with gratitude that she showed me something that I needed to heal within myself. So I no longer stood as a victim and blaming her all the time. I was actually observing that this person was showing me something that I needed to heal within myself. So the third point basically is about your parents. And I learned this the hard way, because I know that parents, oh God, I'm not gonna say hard, it's challenging to work with parents or kids. I don't have kids, but working with parents and working with our issues and our traumas and our incidents or whatever, it's a challenge. but that is the foundation of your life. And if you have not healed your relationship with your parents, or at least most of it, you're gonna have problems in all areas of your life, okay? Like I said, your mom reflects the female part and your dad reflects the male part. So if you're a woman and you have daddy issues, and the man that you attract might be associated with your dad. Sometimes it's associated with the mom, but most of the time it's associated with the dad. Or if you're a guy and you have mommy issues, those are gonna be reflected on the female that you attract. And it also reflects your work. So if you have issues with your work, and if you're a woman and you have issues at work, you might be trying to look for mom in your job. Or if you are a man and you have trouble at work or at making money, you might be wanting to look for dad at work, and you might not have, you might have issues making money. So these things reflect on our life. So the more you work your issues with your parents, the better you'll be in life. And I learned this the hard way. It took me so many years. I worked my dad issue at the beginning because I had a terrible relationship with my dad for many, many years. And I finally was able to resolve it the moment that I saw him as a human being. And it was very interesting because, I didn't do this work because someone told me. I did it because I had to. And I was just tired of having conflicts with my dad. And I remember one time that I was coming after one of the yopo ceremonies, and I'll leave you the video here about that experience. I was living at my grandmother's house and I had no money, I was broke, and my grandma was there, and my grandma has always been really, really nice with me. She loves me. My cousins would say that I was her favorite out of all the cousins. But I was at her house. I had no money. I had nowhere to go. I didn't talk to my parents or my friends. So she was the only person that would hold me and help me, So I was staying at her house. The first day were wonderful. But all of a sudden, she kind of flipped a little bit and she started being a little bit mean with me. Her and my grandfather too, and I was like, this is weird. Why is she treating me like this? She wouldn't invite me to dinner. She wouldn't be as nice as she used to be. And then one day my dad came home and came to my grandparents' house, and they have 3-floor house. So I was in the third floor or the second floor. And my dad came and I saw him walk, and he asked for me. Where is she? Whatever. And my grandma said, oh, she's somewhere over there. And I was trying to hide. And all of a sudden, I looked at my dad. He was down the floor and I was in the balcony, hiding. And all of a sudden, I had a vision of him as a little boy. And I saw him as a little boy, and I instantly connected with his feelings and the feelings that he had when he lived with my grandmother. So I felt what he felt all that time. I felt neglected. I felt misunderstood. I felt like I wasn't important, or I wasn't being heard or seen. So I felt all the emotions that he felt when he was growing up. So in that moment, I felt so much compassion for him and so much love for him. And I understood why he was the way that he was when I grew up. And it really showed me, and it opened my eyes to see that our parents, a lot of the time, they act the way that they act because of their conditions, because of how they grew up, because of their beliefs and all the traumas that they have. So at the end of the day, it's not really their fault. It's just something that's been passed down through generations. And imagine in those times, those generations had different things and resources that we have now. We have so many resources to heal. They didn't have that. So having that compassion for your parents and looking at your parents like they are just human beings with all this baggage and all these beliefs and all these traumas, just trying to do the best that they can with what they had, So seeing them as humans, that allowed me to see my dad as another human being with issues, with traumas, with pains. And then I started seeing him as a friend. And I stopped projecting all my pain on him and trying to fit us in a role. I started to see him as a soul, as a spirit, and I stopped trying to project my inner child pains on him, and I removed the roles of him being a parent and me being a child, and I was just like, I'm just gonna erase the roles, and I'm just gonna act and see him as a human being, as a spirit, as this person, and I'm gonna see him as a friend. And that completely transformed the relationship, and my relationship with him now is amazing. It's better than it ever has been my entire life. So I'm super grateful for that, because you get to see things in a different way, and that reflected also in all areas of my life, in the men that I attracted, in my job and everything. And then I worked with my mother's wound as well, which I thought I had no wounds because my relationship with my mom was good. But then I found out that I had some abandonment issues with her. And sometimes we think that traumas have to be this crazy thing, but a trauma basically is something that you interpreted when you were a child. So maybe you had an incident that maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe it was your parents left you at daycare the first day and you felt like your mom betrayed you or your mom abandoned you. For other people, that might not be a trauma. It might not be that bad. But for you, it was something huge at that stage, okay? Not now. Maybe you see it and you're like, that's ridiculous. That's not an abandonment. But you as a child, as a little boy, you felt all the pain and all the abandonment that your mom left you with these strange people, and you didn't understand that. So that leaves an imprint in your subconscious mind, and it makes you, and that imprint lives with you right now if you haven't dealt with it. Because our subconscious mind doesn't live in the past or the future, it lives in the present moment. So if you had an incident or a trauma that hasn't been resolved, it will always live in your present moment and will be reflected in your external environment. So if you're struggling all the time, maybe at work, maybe with your money, maybe with your relationships, maybe with connecting with other people, it's a reflection of your inner world. It's a reflection of where you're at. So don't see it as something terrible or, I get you because I've struggled for so many years. This has been a constant on me. And I feel like I am in a position where I don't feel like I'm struggling, I feel really, really good with my life. I know where I am. I know where I'm going. And, obviously I have challenges and things like that, but I see things in a different light now. I see and take action in a different way. I don't just react. I just receive the information, I calm down, feel my emotions, and then I take aligned action. And aligned action means you take an action that's aligned with the vision of your future, with the vision of the life that you want, with your dreams. That's what aligned action means. When you don't take aligned action, it means that you're just taking actions out of an emotional rush, or you're being reactive and you're not really thinking through, or you're not really analyzing your emotions pretty well. So your external environment reflects your inner environment. So if you work with healing your relationship with your parents, you're gonna do a lot of the huge work. And I would say maybe that's 50% of the work. I don't know. It's not a percentage. Maybe it's even more. I don't know. I have to look at that. But I would say it's a big part of your spiritual development and for you to have harmony in your life. Maybe you had other issues. Maybe you weren't with your parents. Maybe you had an issue with your uncle. Maybe you were abused as a little child. Maybe you had issues at school. Those traumas are living with you in this moment. And because you haven't dealt with it, you haven't healed them, or you haven't resolved those conflicts, they're being reflected in your external world through struggle, through conflict. So you have to see all these things as mirrors of things that you have to pay attention to. So don't look at your life as horrible. Just look at it as, okay, this is interesting, this is happening. What is this trying to tell me about me? What is this trying to tell me about my issues? What is this trying to tell me about the things that I need to heal? Okay, the moment that you start to see things in that light, you're like, okay, struggling with money. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, mother is the nurturer, father is the provider. So you have to analyze, okay? If I'm having issues with, I think it's the career part, then it's father. If it's money and you're a woman, and if it's money, it's the mother. You can analyze that You can analyze whatever's happening in your surroundings by observing, okay? If you're having partner issues, if you're having relationship issues, that is a reflection of whatever is going on within. So basically, doing these 3 steps is gonna reduce the pressure. It's gonna reduce the pressure of the struggle, of you constantly feeling like you're struggling all the time. Because those 3 things that I gave you today is a lot of work. It probably took me like, say, maybe 8 years to work them through. So don't panic. Don't be like, oh my God, it's gonna take me forever. One step at a time. Sometimes it could take you less time. Sometimes it could be something instant. Sometimes it could take you more. It all depends on the willingness you have to change, and the willingness you have to receive information, and the willingness you have to learn, and the willingness you have to heal. The more willingness you have and openness you have around these things, the easier it will be for you, okay? These first steps are crucial for you to start living in harmony, okay? I could give you a whole list of things that you can do, but beginning with that, okay? If you want harmony, it's not about just one thing. It's a holistic approach. It's about your physical body, it's about your emotional body, your mental body, and your spiritual body, okay? So if anything encompasses all of it or merges everything, I would say focus on your mind and your emotions, okay? Your mind, your brain is one of the most important organs that you have. Because if you don't feel good, if you're not okay with yourself, no matter what you do, you'll never accomplish things. You'll always feel tired. You'll always feel like your mind is fuzzy and blurry. You'll be exhausted all the time, and you won't be able to accomplish your goals and the things you want for your life. So you really have to take care of yourself, okay? I'll give you a bonus, an extra one. One of the things that really helped me start my healing journey was focusing on my physical health. So that meant cutting alcohol, cutting cigarettes, cutting drugs. I wasn't a heavy drug consumer, but I did consume drugs a lot, I'd say. So cutting those things out, working out, eating healthy, because that starts to detox your body and it starts to give you a lot of clarity. And then you can start to analyze and observe your emotions and observe your actions from a clear state. Then you can start doing the rest of the work. But that was fundamental. And I've seen a lot of people that start the healing journey, they start by focusing on the health because either they got really sick or they had a disease or they got obese or something went wrong that forced them to start looking at their health. And after they worked on their health, they started working on their spirituality and their personal growth. So everything is connected, nothing is separate. So if you focus on one thing, the rest will also be affected in a positive way, which can also work in a negative way. If you do something negative with one thing, it will affect the rest. That's why it's not just about one thing, okay? Because let's say if you are hungover one day and you drank so much, the next day you wake up with no energy, you wake up with a hangover, you don't want to do anything. So the actions that you take are not good actions. You go to work and you're upset, and then you upset your colleagues and you upset your boss, and then the boss gets upset with you, and then the next day is worse because your boss already is upset with you, and then that affects your mental state and your emotional state, and then you make less money and you go home. So it's a ripple effect. It's a domino effect. So you have to see it that way, that one small action creates a ripple effect. Okay, that could be negative or that can be positive. So you have to choose negative or positive. You have to choose. Every day, everything is a choice. And the more you choose to take positive actions, the more it will be reflected in your life. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe so that you can get more videos like this. There's a little bell up top. Click on that so that you can get notifications for when I post new videos. Also comment if you've ever felt like you've struggled. Let me know what stage of your healing journey you're in or your spiritual journey you're in. Or if you have any questions or any help, you're more than welcome to comment and I'll respond, or I'll give you some feedback and some support. We can connect on Instagram as well, and I'll put those links below. So yeah, thank you so much. Also, give it a like, share it with someone you think might need it, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.